everybody knows Geoff brilliantly because during the period where we've been running these webinars, he has actually introduced and run 1, 2, 3, 4 webinars, I think. One on strategic competence, one which was called Beware the Comfort Zone, and one on the comedy of errors, which was a wonderful one, and basically humor as a text resource. And what is coming out of and has come out of all the seminars so far is a fascinating look at language, how it's used, and above all, how it's so easily misunderstood. And this is absolutely really revealing and really useful for classrooms, as well as being enormously entertaining. Today, he embarks on what I think is a slightly different area, but a very important area, which is the grouping together of language learners from different countries and different cities through the twin towns notion. And I won't go into too much any further because he's going to be much better at it than I would be, especially because he's looking at the northern city of Leeds in the UK and the area around Dortmund where he actually teaches. And he is also, and I don't know if you mind my mentioning this one, Geoff, he's also the author of a regular document called Testing Times, of which the latest has to do with one of our previous prime ministers, and is actually very revealing about some of the difficulties Britain has experienced in the last 2 or 3, 4 years. Okay, so Geoff, on digital twins, it's over to you.
Right, well, thank you very much, Barry. Yes, welcome to the session, everybody. Good to see you here today, beginning of the new term. What I am going to do, as Barry said, is to look at twin towns as a resource which I think has not yet been really exploited for language learning and language teaching purposes. And I'd like to start off just talking a little bit about twin towns, then look at how I have started to implement this here in Dortmund, and then look at some methods that I have developed in order to try and exploit this in the classroom. And the project hasn't got as far as I had hoped when I announced this topic. 2 weeks ago, it was going to start as part of the 50th anniversary of the twinning between Leeds and Dortmund. But as the result of the death of Queen Elizabeth, the period of mourning meant that the civic delegation and the delegation from Leeds couldn't come. It had to be postponed. And so we're still waiting for a new date before we can start up the project. But I'd like to show you how far we've got and where we are going from here. So twinning, I think, was very, very popular 50, 60 years ago, lost popularity in the course of those 50 years, which I think is a shame. And many towns still have the evidence, as we can see here. The one on the left is in Finland. The one on the top is, I think, in Hungary. Then we have the one in German. Towns try to show at the beginning, at the start of the city boundary, the areas that they are twinned with. And in the middle of Dortmund, we can see this sound state of partnership, the Dortmund-Leeds, means twin city partnership between Leeds and Dortmund. And the strange thing is there are still quite a few different names. Leeds and Dortmund started off as twins, but they now become partner cities. Here we can see Leeds. This is the page from the City of Leeds homepage. You can see the various towns they have. Very interesting towns, Dortmund, one of them. This is Dortmund's selection of twin cities from Buffalo all the way across to China. I found while doing research and doing a bit of research for this session today, I found the oldest twinning in the world, and that goes back 1,200 years between the small town, Catholic town of Paderborn in Germany and Le Mans in France. And they set up a kind of a civic partnership 1,200 years ago. Others call themselves sister cities, especially in the States. And you can see the cities of Los Angeles. On the left-hand side here, it is Michigan. In the middle of San Francisco. On the right-hand side, Los Angeles again. And you can see how many twin cities or sister cities some places have. Then we have the original twin city, which is losing favor. I think twin sounds a little bit too family. It's becoming, the concept of city partnerships is becoming a little bit less family and more commercial for obvious reasons. But you see places like Glastonbury, twinned with Ethiopia, twinned with Greece, Bishop Stortford with Villiers-sur-Marne and Friedberg in Hessen. And then the largest collection of twin towns is actually from Coventry, mainly due to the destruction of Coventry. On the left-hand side here, you can see there are actually 26 twin towns, together with the years when they were established. And there's also the concept of friendship towns, and I've tried to find out what that difference is, because Cheltenham actually distinguishes between twin and friendship towns. They have 5 twin towns and 2 friendship towns. So obviously there's a difference in the contract between the 2 types of towns. I'd like to ask you a question. How many of you here know if you're, or say where you come from, and does your village, your town, your city, your area have a partner village, town, city, area? And how many partner villages do they have? And what their names are, and how to find out? So who would like to say if they know names of any village, town, city, area that their part of the world is actually linked with? Michael?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll talk about a friend street. We have exchanged names with the town of Iraklion in Crete. And also there's a village on the island of Rhodes, which is a friend town with a very small town in Germany.
Okay. And Dubrovnik, Francis, how many twins does Dubrovnik have?
I think about 10. And one that I know very much is a Ruelle Malmaison, close to Paris. It's because they work on a project related to a very famous person here in Dubrovnik, Ruđer Bošković. So they had a project with Dubrovnik. So.
Okay. Patrick, where are you from and what areas are you twinned with? Okay, we'll try.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sitting on the train, so why my mic was switched off. I'm based in Düsseldorf, Germany.
Okay.
And we've got 7 or 8. One is Reading in Berkshire, another one is Tel Aviv in Israel. We are also twinned with Moscow.
Okay.
And there's 2 or 3 more. There's also one in France, but I can't tell you the whole list.
Okay. How about Miriam, Aschaffenburg?
Hold on. Well, we've actually have one twin town in Perth, Scotland. Then there's another twinning city in China. I don't know the name. We have one in France, close to Paris, and there's one in Hungary. I think those are the 4 twin towns that Aschaffenburg has. Okay, let's have a look. I collected 1 or 2. I know where some of you come from. That's why I was able to collect them. You can see here Aschaffenburg, that was Miriam. She was right with Perth. There's one in France, so Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and then Miskolc in Hungary. And if we look at Athens, we have some Greek people here. You can see how many twin towns and twin cities Athens has. Belgrade, I thought Tanya might be here, but she isn't. Tanya from Serbia. Belgrade has 6 twin cities. Bochum, where Eleanor comes from, has 4, Donetsk, Nordhausen, Oviedo, and Sheffield. I'm not saying all of these are really active, but it shows that there are quite a number of twin city arrangements. Coventry, I mentioned before, is the largest. Dortmund, I mentioned before. Saarbrücken, you have 3, according to Wikipedia. To have Cottbus, Nantes, and Georgia Tbilisi. But what I find on Zurich, we have somebody from Switzerland, has two, one in China and San Francisco in the United States. It's actually quite interesting how many there are. Obviously, there's a great variety in number and a great variety across the world. Some of them came from the results of the Second World War, which happened very often in Germany, especially during the 50s and 60s. Others are pure chance because a man happened to meet another man, or a woman happened to meet another woman from another town. That happened in Dortmund with Buffalo. That was just a man who spent 6 or 7 years in Buffalo and came back and wanted to establish a partnership with Dortmund. But we can see, firstly, there are lots of them. It's an untapped resource, very often in language teaching. And we see how little is actually known. Sometimes we do know. Patrick knew quite a bit about Düsseldorf, but on the whole, very few people are able to say how many there are in total and what the towns are that their particular area is twinned with. If you want to find out instantly, just go to Wikipedia, lists of twin towns and sister cities, and then you can hear according to continent, next one according to country in Europe. And here, very interesting, there's something called the Charter of European Rural Communities, a town twinning association across the EU. And I'm sure that hardly anybody here knows more than one, if any, of these places. And it shows that it's not only a resource for large cities, large towns, it's also a resource for small communities. Barry, do you have a twin city in your area?
Check. No, we're near Gatwick Airport. I guess that's the nearest we'd ever get to really knowing anyone overseas. No, Red Hill and Reigate, where I live, seem to be absolutely on their own without twins.
That's strange. I mean, I think it's
unusual. We're only children.
That is unusual. But it just shows there is a wide world out there of potential for twinning if the local community wish to do so. While doing my research, I found out, I knew there was a place in Scotland called Dull, and I knew there was a place called Boring in Oregon, and believe it or not, there's a place called Bland in Australia. And as, I'm sure it's not chance, but say as chance would have it, they are all twinned. So Dull is paired with Boring, Oregon and Dull, Scotland. Every 9th of August is their Boring and Dull Day. And they are also a sister city in Bland, Australia, and they make a really good marketing campaign out of this. Bland is far from dull and boring. I thought that was a very good take on twin cities and the element of city partnerships. Right. This is an interesting question. This came up in The Guardian a few years ago. And the question is there a point to twin towns? What is the point of twin towns? How did they arise? What has happened? Is there any reason for doing this? And the question is perfectly valid. And I know even in Dortmund over the years, I have heard the opinion it's just an occasion for civic delegations to go and get drunk on at the expense of another town. And I'm sure there is some truth to that. But that's probably, hopefully, not the whole truth. That led to headlines like this. Just a moment. Twin towns, do we still need them? That picked up by the BBC. You can see this was in 2013. And the first paragraph of that article, most places have got one, some even have several, but many people know nothing about them. And then here from The Economist, this is a bit later, this is 2018. What's the point of twin cities? Is it an old-fashioned idea or a model for cooperation? So there is not only perhaps a lack of knowledge about how many and what twin cities various places have, but also what is the point? It seems like a good idea, but if people are asked what is the point, it's very often difficult to give a really a good answer. So what do you think? What is the point of twin cities or friendship cities, partner cities? Any spontaneous response from anybody? Francis?
Yeah, it reminds me of the partnership that we have in Erasmus. And so we try to use these partnerships for collaboration between two institutions, and it comes and goes. So it depends on the person we have in one or the other institution. They became friends, they met and then certain partnerships are working well, other partnerships are not working, so they kind of disappear. So, but my impression is these partnerships, they are showing the history of the city in a way, because you cannot only focus on only one of you, and if you have the people to maintain that relations, then, but if not, unless the partnership has been defined by sometime a business partnership, where, for example, when I was in Japan, the small town of Miyazaki was partnered with a US city, but because there was a company that was involved. So
that is a very good point. It's not low maintenance, as people say nowadays. It does require initiative, it requires work, and it requires people who have the commitment to do this, because it's a question of providing information and keeping the information up to date. Helen, have you got any ideas what on the point of twin sister partner cities?
Well, I suppose for me, coming from Britain, I think one of the most poignant one is Coventry and Dresden, because of what happened in the war, trying to give a better understanding. Yes, there, as has been said before, there's often the view that it's a good party point to invite or be invited. But with us in Bamberg, which is close to where I live, because my village is too small to be twinned with anybody, we're twinned with Bedford, several others. But every year there is an English Christmas market. And it often brings a lot of interesting conversation as to why do you have this and we have that, as opposed to not underlining the differences, but perhaps showing what's common in both areas. The schools in Bamberg are twinned with schools in Bedford and other countries where they're twinned, and so this exchange for educational purposes, yes, but also getting to know people from other areas and visits. And I know several friends, including my sons, and I forget the name of the town they were paired with in Slovakia. They still have contact with those kids. Well, kids are not kids anymore, but with those young people from that time of visiting Slovakia and them coming here and staying in our house. Yeah, I think it's really a really important thing, and I'd be sad to see it disappear.
Patrick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sure. So I can just add that it's usually about people and people meeting on all levels. We've got youth groups meeting. Twin cities often means also that schools from both cities kind of have a kind of exchange. They visit each other, the pupils, the teachers, the students. In the case of Reading and Düsseldorf, I also know that there's a regular exchange between students, and in this case, it also means that Reading waives the tuition fees for the students from Düsseldorf, so they don't have to pay the tuition fees, and they can stay in the halls of residence on campus. And this is also the other way around. So this works both ways.
Yeah, I mean this element of post-war peace is very important, and the element of people traveling from country to country is very important. And it was even more important in the 50s and 60s, because very few people traveled abroad in the 50s and 60s, and the Twin Cities was perhaps an organized way of getting to another country. With the change in mobility and the increase in mobility over the last 40, 50 years, the question is that still the case? Do people do things, travel more by themselves and go across borders more by themselves? But definitely the center of attention should be the people. I actually found one article that was positive here, totally twinning the benefits of twin cities. And here it is a question, I think this is a description of what happens in Bristol. So there are not only negative criticisms, there are also positive criticisms of twin cities. Going from the 60s up to the present time, we're now in the digital age. And this is a book I'm going to order. I just found it on the Amazon page a few days ago, Global City Twinning in the Digital Age. Given that we have other methods of making contact nowadays, should perhaps the twinning arrangements, should people from areas with friendship cities, partner cities, sister cities, try other methods of maintaining contact and keeping in communication with each other. And this is why I started, when I became chair of the Anglo-German club in Dortmund, the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft, for the second time about a year and a half ago. And associations like the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft and the Leeds Anglo-German Club have had problems in the last 3 or 4 years, first of all because of Brexit, and secondly because of the pandemic. Traveling has become far more difficult, sometimes impossible through lockdowns, etc. So I try to find other ways of bringing people together via Zoom. And the Leeds Anglo-German Club were already Zooming amongst their members, and so I latched on, and we have once every 4, 5, 6 weeks an evening together. And here you can see people from, I've obviously covered up the names to protect the innocent, but we get together and have talks. We put people into groups, they talk to each other. We also have things like this, quizzes like this. On the right-hand side, you have the Dortmund Town Hall. On the right-hand side, you have the Leeds Town Hall, both of which have completely different functions. And the task was then to try and find out as much as you can about the building in your partner city. They can talk English, they can talk German, they can talk any language they wish. And then they have to find out what the difference is and purpose, who works there, what happens there, how old it is. And then the Dortmund person in the group reports about Leeds and to the whole meeting, and the person from Leeds reports about Dortmund. Leeds Town Hall, for example, has no civil servants. It's mainly a concert hall, and there are prisons in the cellar, and there are courtrooms, whereas the Dortmund Rathaus is full of civil servants. I mean, again, Dortmund has a Friedensplatz, which means Dortmund Peace Square, and there's a Leeds Peace Square in Leeds. Because if you bring people together, you can let them talk for a certain amount of time, but to provide interesting topics, especially on their towns, exchanging information, talking about their towns, something like this is quite useful. The other interesting thing which people loved is the British people were given these literal translations of German phrases. So don't bring me on the palm, you make me fox devils wild, not bad Mr. Woodpecker, what a juice store, and good, all good, do you have a bird? Now we have the salad, and good, all good, and don't go me on the nerves. And vice versa, go Dutch, use your loaf. The Germans had to guess what all these signs mean. And that again brought people together, and the common theme there was the differences between the languages and the question of identity, how people use languages in different ways in the various idioms. And that was the result of every time we have such a meeting, we have a Padlet at the end for people to say what they would like to talk about next time. And as you can see, it started off last year very well, and we've had several meetings in the meantime. As a result of that, especially the quiz I just showed you with the compare Dortmund Town Hall with Leeds Town Hall, it seems to me that there's hardly any information about one's twin town. It's very difficult to find information. You can use the internet, but to find information, specific information, takes time and effort. And so I decided, with the help of the organization on the top left-hand side, you can see Leeds Dortmund, and underneath the Auslandsgesellschaft.de, e.V., that is a not-for-profit institute in Dortmund, which is concerned with cultural information, cultural education in Dortmund. They financed the setting up of this Leeds Dortmund twinning homepage. And I'll just go back with one moment. When you click on this, you can see the link, www.leeds-Dortmund, and I deliberately chose EU in view of Brexit. This provides information about Leeds, and we'll just move on. And you can see at the top, above the pictures, there are various categories. And if we look at the first category, facts and figures, and click on there, facts and figures on Leeds and Dortmund, and you will also notice, which is very important for the purpose I'm going to be talking about in a moment, which is the classroom, exactly the same, Zahlen und Fakten, Leeds, Zahlen und Fakten, Dortmund. So the information can be found in the two. And if we click on facts and figures, Leeds, it takes us to the Wikipedia page. People are automatically taken to Wikipedia, where they find all the information they may need about Leeds. And here, for example, here, population, where it is, etc., etc., etc. So that is for Leeds and Dortmund. The second section, that is the history of Leeds. With facts and figures, we have the history of Leeds. Again, taking you to Wikipedia, where you can read either in English, or if you click the other tile, you have the history of Leeds in German. Well, and a timeline for Leeds from the Doomsday Book onward. And now we also have the history of the twinning, how it started, how it started, and what has happened over the last 50 years. And if we go to page 50-year celebrations, I can just show you what is on that page. I'll just go onto the internet now, just one moment. I hope this worked. It worked when I was practicing. You can see we have history of the twinning, what happened, 50-year celebration. How did it come about? Okay, just to give you a quick impression of what people find if they click on there. Let's go back up to where I was. Yeah. The next category is pictures of the town, views of the two cities. You have some, you already have views on the first page, but if we click on views of the two cities, you can see here, it's paired. Top left-hand corner, I have Leeds Town Hall, then comes Dortmund Town Hall, and Leeds Civic Hall, Dortmund Civic Hall, Leeds United, Borussia Dortmund, shopping in Leeds, and below that shopping in Dortmund and Leeds. In the middle we have Dortmund, Ems Canal, and Leeds and Liverpool Canal. So people can see the two similar aspects of both towns, and click on. So if we click on Leeds Town Hall, we get background information. Move on. I have the same with videos, and this links people to YouTube videos. So let's take one at the bottom, at the bottom, In the middle at the bottom, Industriegeschichte Dortmunds, which means the industrial history of Dortmund. And if we click on there, we can see various aspects, the old steelworks, the water tower, top right-hand corner. And then in the middle on the left, the Dortmund Canal port. And then next to that, we have the coal mine. And each tile, if you click on the tile, you come to a YouTube video giving you information, 3 or 4 minutes information on that particular aspect. What I find very interesting, especially from a cultural point of view, are the old miners' villages which are still in existence in Dortmund. And this is the one tile which is framed in red. And if we move on, I can show you just by clicking. Just a moment.
Die Siedlung ist gebaut worden in der Zeit von 1913 bis 1919. In der Siedlung durfte nur wohnen, wer auf der Zeche Dostfeld gearbeitet hatte. Die Zeche ist ja dann in den 60er Jahren zugemacht worden. Und die Bergleute haben dann weiterhin hier noch gewohnt und haben zum großen Teil dann auf anderen Zechen gearbeitet.
So not everybody will be able to follow that, so I won't continue. I think it shows quite clearly how we can bring to people's attention, people in Leeds, attention what Dortmund is like, the various aspects. There are a total of, at the moment, this is an ongoing process. At the moment of the pictures I showed you a few months ago, there are at the moment 60. That is going to be built up to about 100. And we have about 70, 75 videos at the moment, which will be increased to 120 as soon as they become available. So let's go back where we were. Made a mistake there, just one moment. Let's go back, see where we are. Forward Leeds, getting there. There we are. So more back. We showed the old coal miners' houses. The one food and drink in Leeds. This one might be of interest to people from Yorkshire. A moment. How to make a Yorkshire pudding. You can't get much more cultural than a Yorkshire pudding.
Yorkshire pudding. Not the leathery cross between a donut and a Scotch pancake that masquerades under this title outside the county, but the real Yorkshire article. The ingredients are merely flour, salt, eggs, milk and water. But the real secret is a well-beaten mixture poured into smoking hot fat and no time wasted in serving.
There we are. If you want more, just click on Yorkshire pudding on YouTube and you'll how to make a Yorkshire pudding and you'll find the recipe and you'll be able to make the perfect Yorkshire pudding. Right. Final section is partnerships, and this shows what partnerships there are. We talked about the Anglo-German Club and the German-British Society. We have choirs, Florian singers, together with Upper Harmony and Leeds. The International Police Association in Dortmund is linked with the Police Association in Leeds. And we also, the Deutsche Britische Gesellschaft, also has a link with Leeds for Europe, which is an anti-Brexit party, part of the European movement. And we have regular meetings with them where people can talk about the effects of Brexit on Britain. Right, and these are, everything that happens is then recorded onto our page. In other words, what I just showed you, this homepage provides a treasure hunt of information about the two twin cities. And what I'm now in the process of developing is a kind of taxonomy of methods. And
just as an example, here we have the pictures I showed you, the photographs. And a task could then be in the classroom, work in pairs. Choose a photograph from your twin city. So Leeds people would choose one from Dortmund. The Leeds people being learners of German. The Dortmund people being learners of English would choose one from Dortmund. Read the text behind it. Underline, note down important and interesting details. Would you want to visit that place? Why not? Present your findings to the rest of the class. Decide as a class which of the various buildings you would include in a tour if you were visiting your twin city. All right. Or choose a photograph from your city and discuss with your partner what you actually know about it, because interestingly enough, very few people know everything about their own city. Yeah. Check with the information on the website. Decide if it is interesting enough for visitors from your twin city. Tell the class which photo you have chosen and why you would include it in the program. And then write a mail to visitors coming from your city and explain the program. So what we're doing here is taking authentic material in an authentic context of twinning Leeds and Dortmund, not just any town, but twin, and the plausibility of having to do this in the future, because I want this to lead up to actual visits between, or either Zoom visits or actual visits between the two cities. At the same time, you're using language. They're reading, they're speaking, they're discussing, they're listening, and they're writing mail to their twin city. So it's an integrated approach to using and practicing language skills in the classroom, all based on the twin city of Dortmund. Here's another one. This time it is museums. Here, the top 6 are the various museums. With the video in Leeds, and then below there are 7 museums. And again, working in pairs, choose a museum from your city. Discuss what you think is shown in the museum. Watch the video and check. If you need more information, check the museum website. Decide whether the museum is interesting for visitors from your twin city, and present your ideas to your class. And then write a mail to the person from the twin city and recommend that they watch the video. And when we have coming weeks and months, when we have 2 classes together, which could be school classes, I am also hoping for adult education to get involved. I'm also actually hoping for the university, because I teach at the university in Dortmund, and I'd like to get the language center at the university linked to the language center with the university in Leeds. Other possibilities here with history. People go to the page on the history of the city of Dortmund, make a timeline of the history of Dortmund for friends in your twin city. At the bottom with the yellow box, yellow arrow, and the blue arrows to show the dates. And the other half of the class, or people in Leeds, make a timeline of the history of Leeds for other English classes at your school. Then show your friends in class the timeline you have made, and prepare, because if you have various timelines created in the same class, they will obviously be different, and people should look at each other, again, for practice purposes, but also for content purposes. Compare the timelines for Leeds and Dortmund, and what are the differences and what are the similarities. Or here, some of the videos don't have text. Here, Dortmund from the air, Leeds city centre from the air. Work in pairs. Watch the video of your city. Make notes of the important things you see. Choose and collect important information about the things you've chosen, and prepare a summary for people so they can follow the video better. Here are walkabouts. 2 of these videos show walkabouts, 5 minutes walkabout through Leeds, 3 minutes walkabout through Dortmund. And there are people
look at their text, make notes, and prepare a summary, prepare a commentary to go with the video. They can record a commentary. Here, the Leeds-Liverpool Canal on the left-hand side. Dortmund has a canal from Dortmund to Ems. This is with text, history of the canal. People summarize, take down the important information, and then compare what are the similarities, what are the differences between Dortmund and Leeds canals. This requires a certain amount of technical equipment, but it can be done either you have a classroom with an interactive whiteboard. That'll make it difficult for people to work in pairs. So classrooms, the second option, classrooms with individual computer places work as well, or hybrid classroom arrangements, which is becoming more and more popular, I'm afraid, nowadays. Hybrid lessons are taking place at the university in Dortmund. Some people at home, they can work on their own computers, some people in the classroom with their own computers. What I have done in some of my technical English courses, students bring their own notebooks, so that each of them are independent. Or if all of those fail, home assignments. They are given the task of doing this on the Dortmund Leeds homepage themselves. So what are my aims? I hope to have shown that the materials I have provided and the methods I have mentioned, and there are more activities than the few I showed you now. There are more activities which can be used. The first is to enhance the awareness of international connections, especially with the Twin Cities. People who haven't been to Leeds, who haven't perhaps even been to England, or have no contacts with anybody who has been to Leeds, will hardly be aware what Leeds is like, what they can, why they should go there, what Leeds people are like, what the culture of people, what the language used is like, especially because the activities taking place between the two towns are at a minimal level at the moment because of Brexit and because of pandemic. And Brexit is actually a problem which I didn't expect to find. It's becoming a problem because Germans have to get a passport to go to Britain. And that is not a cost problem, it's a bureaucratic problem. Going to the town hall, getting your photographs taken, trying to get an appointment, etc., etc. It takes 3 or 4 weeks and quite a bit of endeavor to get the passport, especially if you need it at short notice. So enhance awareness, present authentic materials in authentic settings. The examples I've shown you, that I have put on the website, on the homepage, are all authentic materials, all actual websites, not for teaching purposes. And the authentic setting is Leeds Dortmund preparing for a visit to or connecting and communicating with people from the Twin City in groups and in pairs. And at the same time, practicing language skills, reading, listening, speaking, writing, and particularly mediation, because mediation plays a very important role here. You can perhaps tell people about Leeds. You can even write things to Leeds, but whether they actually understand the background and why certain things, the example with the Yorkshire pudding, I think, is a very good example. You have to explain why Yorkshire people are proud of Yorkshire pudding and why they think the Yorkshire pudding used in Yorkshire is better than Yorkshire pudding made anywhere else in Britain. So mediation can play an important part here. It's a useful resource for practicing and training mediation. Bringing people together, increasing awareness of cultural differences. Two examples I didn't show you is I have one video of Carnival in Dortmund and one video of Carnival in Leeds. And Leeds has the oldest Caribbean carnival in the whole of Britain. It's even and it's second in size to the Carnival in London, and that is pure cultural information. One of the videos for Dortmund is the market. And then you can compare the Leeds market with the Dortmund market. And we also have in the north of Dortmund, our multicultural area, and there's a video of a multicultural market in the middle of Dortmund. So awareness of cultural differences and the multicultural, and Leeds is as equally multicultural as Dortmund, which very few people know. So we are enriching language courses. This is not something I would do in every lesson. It's something that can be done if, whenever you are dealing with a topic in the classroom, you can enrich the language course by showing videos, quite easily videos or photos, and going to websites that give information about anything that you find in the materials you are using at any one time. Where I want to take this also in future is into the area of politics, from the system of elections, for example, and the parties, and how councillors are elected in Britain, which is completely different to the way councillors are elected in Germany. And at the same time, also establish and re-establish contacts between groups of the two cities. There used to be lots of schools that had contacts. Those have dwindled. So a lot of them have actually just died a natural death, and they can be re-established. And we are appealing to people to, you saw on the overview, the rubric partnerships with the help of the Lord Mayor's office in Dortmund. We're going to address all groups in Dortmund who have had contacts in the past or who would like contacts, and help them to establish contacts with a similar association, with a similar group in Leeds in the near future. And the whole thing is then to produce visits to the Twin City. I could also, some people here today are actually managers of language schools. I could actually imagine here a kind of a new language course format, a weekend Twin City course where you practice your English, and the topic for just one weekend is our Twin City in, which could be Leeds or England, it could be France, it could be anywhere, wherever your Twin Cities are. And then within that weekend course, intensive course, you could plan a visit to that Twin City. So that is what I'm trying to do. We can just an overview of various partners in the throughout Europe.